What's going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another brand new episode of Renegades Reviews. Very, very special episode today of Renegades Reviews. I am the Renegade JJ Williams, and today's show is special because not only is it being broadcast as per usual on the Casa D18 Studios channel, but today's show is also being broadcast live on the JEFF MEACHAM Network. And today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the 1987 film Dragnet, starring Tom Hanks along with Dan Aykroyd. Let's get into it. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to today's installment of Renegades Reviews. As I said, today's episode is special because not only is it on the Casa D18 Studios channel, it's also on the JEFF MEACHAM Network. So first and foremost, a special thank you to the West Coast professor for allowing me to, a couple times a month, invade his channel and bring you some of what I'm into on the alternate weeks when Dad's, not always, on wrestling does not air. As I said, today's episode, I'm going to be discussing the 1987 film Dragnet, which, for those of you who missed yesterday's installment when I discussed The Burbs, I mentioned that Dragnet was my favorite Tom Hanks film for a very long time. It was probably one of the first ones I ever really saw him in, along with Big. And just something about the way he played opposite of Aykroyd in this really, really stuck with me for a long time. I loved his performance in this. Dan Aykroyd, obviously, is the main star of this, as he plays Sergeant Joe Friday, who in this film is the nephew of the original Joe Friday from the Dragnet TV series, who is portrayed by Jack Webb. Tom Hanks is his partner, Pep Strebeck. Harry Morgan is back as Bill Gannon. He was the original Friday's partner on the TV show, and in this lineage, he's now been promoted up to the captain of the department. So he is effectively Joe Friday and Pep Strebeck's boss. We've also got Christopher Plummer as the Reverend Jonathan Worley, Alexandra Paul, pre-Baywatch, as the Virgin Connie Swale, and Dabney Coleman as Jerry Caesar, who's very much a Hugh Hefner type of personality. We'll get into that in a little bit. Since Aykroyd is the star, clearly Dragnet is the movie. It's focused all about Detective Joe Friday, Sergeant Joe Friday, who, in the opening moments of the film, his partner retires. His partner was a gentleman by the name of Frank Smith, decides he's going to go and retire and open up a farm in somewhere. I forget where they said he was going. It's irrelevant, honestly, to the story, but his partner retires. And so Captain Gannon assigns a brand new partner to Joe Friday to go investigate the pagan crimes. Now, in this film, the word pagan is an acronym which stands for People Against Goodness and Normalcy. Pep Strebeck comes in to be Friday's partner, and the two men couldn't be more polar opposites. If you know anything about Joe Friday and Dragnet, it's very straight-laced, monotone, just the facts, man. Very little, if any, emotion ever shown from Friday. Pep Strebeck is the complete opposite. He's a ladies' man. He's energetic. He's wild. He has long hair when we first meet him, facial hair. Very crazy. Plays by his own rules. And Friday's having none of that. If you are going to be his partner, you've got to be by the book. So there's a lot of butting heads between the two, which will eventually, as the movie rolls on, turn into give and take, as the two men definitely learn from each other as the movie progresses. The first stop on the crimes is they need to go to the Griffith Park Zoo, where a Madagascar fruit bat and a 20-foot boa constrictor have been stolen, and the lions have had their manes shaved off. The attendant gives 3 pagan cards to the gentleman. One was found in each of the cages, and now they're off on their next part of the mission, where they go to Jerry Caesar's mansion. And as I said, this guy is very much in the vein of Hugh Hefner. He's got his plush estate with his bait mates, playmate bunnies, roaming the premises. Bait magazine is a skin magazine, very much in the vein of Playboy. In fact, they're getting ready for the big 25th anniversary celebration, where all the bait mates are being reunited for this big extravagant party, which will play in towards the climax of the film. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but you get the idea here. It's very eccentric, very high class society, a mansion, gorgeous women everywhere. Very, very much Hugh Hefner inspired. After they leave the mansion, they go investigate a train yard where a couple of hazardous chemicals have been siphoned from their respective tanks. And on their own, the chemicals aren't too dangerous, but when they mix together, they can be very potent and deadly. And we also go to a personal robbery where a gentleman robbed a woman at an apartment complex and stole her wedding gown. And that one seems like the oddest one in everything, but as we start to get a little deeper into the digging here, we find out that the gentleman who robbed her was a man by the name of Emil Muzz. Emil Muzz just happened to be a tenant of the respective apartment complex, and he's a member of the pagan group. So he stole this wedding dress, which will come in the midst of our second act, and we're going to build to that here. We then get a car chase that ends with the arrest of Emil Muzz after he crashes into a lifeguard stand on a beach. During the investigation, we get a little good cop, bad cop going on, where Sergeant Friday is playing the good cop, and he's going to get some coffee and a Snickers and a thing of chewing gum for Emil, while Pep Strebeck is playing bad cop, threatening to slam his genitalia into a desk drawer. During the course of the investigation, they're able to get the location of the pagan meeting that'll be taking place that evening. So they go down to headquarters. They requisition some outfits for undercover, really punk rock. Aykroyd with a blonde wig and a red mohawk, which totally looks out of place on Sergeant Friday, but that's part of the comedy behind it. At the meeting, they find the missing wedding dress on the body of the sacrificial virgin, the Virgin Connie Swale. They find the Madagascar fruit bat. They find the 20-foot boa constrictor. And they find the lion's mane. All here at this celebration. They throw the virgin to sacrifice her into the snake pit, and Friday and Strebeck leap in there to save her, shove a bunch of drugs down the snake's mouth for it to choke on to kill it so that they can be released from the coils. They save her from the sacrifice, obviously, start their escape, and Friday and Connie are starting to fall for each other. Again, this is very, very out of place for Friday. no emotion, straight-laced. But here's this virgin, excuse me, here's this virgin, and he's very, very much starting to fall for her over the course of these moments. They drop Connie off. They report back to their captain everything that they've seen, and the captain thinks that they're crazy. But they're able to convince him to call the commissioner, go down to the site of the celebration, experience it all for himself. They get there, the commissioner meets them, there is nothing. Everything has been cleaned up in just a matter of hours. Now, as a man who's worked concerts before personally, let me just say I've seen some cleaning crews come through and be able to completely demolish everything in a couple of hours. So I know that this can happen. But when you're talking about average Joes that probably aren't the most tech sound individuals, it's definitely kind of hard to swallow that they would have been able to clean this up that quickly. But again, it's a movie. I digress. This is just something I'm speaking from personal experience as a man who's worked staffing at arenas and been part of load-ins and load-outs for concerts. The next morning, Emil Muzz plants a car bomb onto Friday's car when he goes to try to pick up Strebeck for the day's shift. We have our regular routine developments for the day. Nothing real major that I took note on. Just little things here and there. Strebeck trying to get Friday to open up to him. Trying to figure out where Friday goes when the day is over. So Strebeck decides to follow him this evening, and he ends up following Friday all the way to his maternal grandmother's house, Grandma Monday. I love the way they played that into it. Strebeck assumed her name was Friday as well, and we were made sure to be clarified that this was a maternal grandmother, Granny Monday. Friday is there to celebrate her birthday, take her to her favorite dining establishment, the Brown Derby. He wants to introduce his grandma to a very special person who is later revealed to be the Virgin Connie Swale. Strebeck ends up tagging along as Granny Monday's date since Joe has Connie. And they go to the Brown Derby. When they get to the Brown Derby, that's when things start to get very interesting because the Reverend Jonathan Worley walks in. He's there dining with Captain Gannon and the police commissioner, and the Virgin Connie Swale IDs him as the leader of the pagans, the man who kidnapped her, the man who threw her into the pit and tried to sacrifice her in front of everybody. And Friday is stunned at first because the Reverend has this public image. I mean, he's a Reverend, for God's sakes. He's more of a televangelist, if you think along the lines of Jimmy Swaggart. But he's very much this high-profile do-gooder in the community, trying to get rid of smut and filth and all those bad influences. So for him to be ID'd as the leader of the pagans is totally a mind-blown experience. Friday and Pep Strebeck are both like, are you sure? Are you positive? Because if we go and we make a move on this, this could be our butts. Friday goes into the bathroom when the Reverend goes in there, confronts him, arrests him, takes him back to the table where the commissioner and the captain are sitting at. he's ordered to release him and turn in his badge. So now our hero, Sergeant Friday, is fired essentially from the one thing he has known his entire life, being a cop. Then, let me see here. Yes. After the date at the Brown Derby, Joe and Connie go out to like a lookout point. They're getting ready to make out, and Emomez comes and dumps their car upside down, kidnaps them. Strebeck's heard nothing from Friday, calls the Virgin Connie Swale's house. Connie's mom has heard nothing from her. Strebeck's worried. This is not like Friday. Granted, he's only been his partner for less than a week, but you know that this is not Joe Friday behavior. Strebeck jumps into action. He ends up at the Griffith Park Observatory, where Connie and Joe are being held captive, frees them. They all chase down the pagans, ends up back at Jerry Caesar's mansion. Strebeck calls for backup. We got SWAT rolling in tanks, plowing down the mansion gates. We've got gunfire everywhere. We finally apprehend our villains, the majority of them anyways. As of course, the Reverend has escaped. He's on his way to the airport with the Virgin Connie Swale to take off. We don't really get a location, but to just take off and get away and let everything die down. But of course, Friday's not going to let that happen. Strebeck's not going to allow that to happen. Captain Gannon shows up at the mansion as everyone's being arrested, and Strebeck is ready to take off with Friday to go chase down the Reverend. Captain Gannon's like, whoa, hold up. You cannot take a civilian on a hot pursuit. Decides to give Friday his badge back, making him legal, making him back to being an active member of the force. Tells him he didn't have the heart to turn it in to the commissioner. He was just waiting for the right moment. So we pursue the Reverend to the airfield. He takes off, gets away, but Friday is able to commandeer a police plane, chase him down, force them to land. We finally arrest the Reverend Jonathan Worley, who gets sentenced to, I think it said in the post scene, like 40-something consecutive 99-year sentences. We then flash forward just a little bit. Everything seems to be business as usual. Strebeck arrives late for work the next day, and as him and Joe are getting ready to go walking into the police station, business as usual. Friday makes a reference to Connie Swale, but he does not call her the Virgin Connie Swale, which allows us to note that he has now deflowered her and taken her virginity. Very, very subtle, but a nice touch, letting us know that Joe has finally gotten himself a girlfriend, and maybe things are going to change out just a little bit here as time goes on. As I said, this was one of my favorite Tom Hanks films for a very, very long time. I definitely have to give this one 4 stars out of 5. it's definitely up there for me, along with Forrest Gump, Big, League of Their Own, That Thing You Do, Apollo 13, those type of movies. I can't say enough good things about Dragnet. You know, the 80s for Tom Hanks were a very, very up and down roller coaster when it came to movies. You know, you had movies like Splash and Big, and those were really good, solid movies for his career. And then you had the movies that, like I say, there's no such thing as a bad Tom Hanks movie, but you have those movies that are a little bit more throwaway films like The Money Pit, Volunteers, The Burbs, The Man with One Red Shoe, Nothing in Common. And not to say that any of these are bad films, but I just personally don't feel that they hold to the quality that Big, Dragnet even, Splash all hold to for Tom Hanks in the 80s. What do you guys think of the 1987 film Dragnet? Leave your comments in the box below. As always, I will be interactive and reply to as many as I possibly can, because that's what I do. I enjoy interacting with you guys. I enjoy the response, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. For those of you who are tuning into this for the first time, because it's the first time right here on the Jeff Meacham Network, let me just say that I am going to be doing more current new releases as things open up from quarantine and COVID. You know, I talk about how we're living in the age of coronavirus, and as of right now, I'm canning a lot of episodes of this so that I have stuff ready to go up on a daily basis for everybody. Because if anything happens to me with my job or my personal life, or things get worse out there in the age of COVID and stuff starts shutting down more again, you know, as it sits right now when I'm filming this, movie theaters are not open in Southern California, so I can't go see new releases. But I do have an extensive library of my own personal collection. Got Netflix, we got Vudu, we got Tubi, we've got Crackle, got Disney Plus, plenty of outlets, Redbox, plenty of outlets for me to score movies to review for you, the loyal viewers. And I hope that you will continue to tune in every day for another exciting episode of Renegades Reviews. We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatBoyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today. So, as I always do, right here on Renegades Reviews, let me thank you for tuning in here to Casa D18 Studios. And today, for those of you that joined me on the Jeff Meacham Network, I am the Renegade JJ Williams, and I will see you next time right here for another exciting episode of Renegades Reviews.